Hello everybody and welcome back to the Overlap Breakdown channel. Today I am here to cover whether Mikel Arteta has built the most complete team in the world in Arsenal. Okay, good morning, welcome back to the channel as always. One thing I want to say is thank you for everyone who did subscribe from the sort of call to action to subscribe. But we are very, very close to hitting 40,000 now and 82% of our viewers still aren't subscribed. So if you do enjoy the content, please don't forget to subscribe, like, it helps out so much in terms of the performance of our videos. And the more you like and the more you enjoy it, the more we can produce. And I'm not joined by a co-host today, they will return next week. But I am going to cover something which I've been quite passionate about for a little bit of time now about Arsenal, and the narratives last season were that Arsenal need to start closing the gap to the big trophies. And I think last night was their, when I'm recording this on a Wednesday, last night was their sort of biggest win in terms of not even playing well, but sort of standing their ground and showing how good they can be, even when they're not at tip-top performance. That was their 4-0 win against Atletico Madrid. Now, I'm going to touch a lot on about that game, but we've not covered Arsenal on the channel recently at all. We've been very Palace, United, Liverpool focused in the last few weeks. And in that time, Arsenal have just been going about their business, doing the business and winning games, winning football matches. And they are currently 3 points clear. And in the Champions League, they have been absolutely flawless. And Arsenal have conceded 3 goals this season. That is their best defensive record after 12 games in their entire history. Arsenal are now the first side in Champions League history to win 7 consecutive games against Spanish opposition. In that time, they beat Real Madrid twice, Sevilla twice, Girona, Athletic Club, and now Atletico Madrid. And in their 9 games at home in the group stage or league phase, under Mikel Arteta, they have won all 9 of them, conceding absolutely nothing with 26 goals scored. And just a little bit more data in that stat that come out that blew up on TNT Sports, which they were referencing a lot. I actually went through all the games that Mikel Arteta's Arsenal have played at home in the Champions League group stage. They hadn't conceded over 1 expected goal in any single one of them games. And keep in mind, they have obviously played Atletico Madrid, PSG, Lens, I think we're in there. So very, very, very good start to the season from Arsenal. And I think after a lot of the sort of stories that were going about after their games against City and Liverpool, it was almost like, back hold to Arsenal, not being risk averse, not taking the game by the scruff of the neck. And it does now feel that despite them not winning them big games, they are one of the most complete teams in Europe at this moment. And I'm going to run through very quickly something that I've noticed for Arsenal on the ball, which I think has given them a lot of the edge this season. I'm then going to go into talk about their out of possession and how good they have been out of possession. And to put into context that this Arsenal team is the best defensive side per game on average. I know we're only 8 or so games in Premier League for the last 3 or 4 seasons. So on the ball, I just want to quickly talk to you about how their 4-3-3 has dramatically changed this year. So in the game against Atletico Madrid, what we were noticing a lot of, and we've covered this a lot on the channel, is if the fullbacks are staying really wide on the ball when Arsenal sort of like to push up the pitch against the deep block. So we've got Viktor Gyokeres, who is playing 2v1 against 2 central defenders. We've got their wingers pinning high against Atleti's fullbacks. And then if we just push the midfield on, so we can have it as if Arsenal are building in their traditional 4-3-3, I can show you how much this changes against oppositions. Now, one thing we've got straight away here is probably, you can see that if these 2 players are stepping up in that 4-4-2 press, it means the centre-halves haven't really got a man spare. Usually, one of these players will jump onto them, with this player being the spare man, and it's also about blocking the lanes into that spare man. Now, how Arsenal went about fixing this, or not even fixing it, just sort of becoming even better at playing against these compact mid-blocks, is that Zubimendi has been the one splitting the centre-halves. And when these centre-halves like to push on, that creates a massive problem for these 2, pressing forwards here. We've got a +1 in the back if the ball is with Zubimendi in the middle. We've now got Saliba, Gabriel playing these really unique positions where these strikers have to make these long bursting runs if they want to close them down. Mix that with the ability to also introduce Declan Rice a little bit more central and deeper and playing in that sort of 2-man partnership with Zubimendi where they both up and down. The ball is swapped around. They can both play that 3rd centre-back role. It causes a lot of problems for the 4-4-2. Now, the great thing about Arsenal under Mikel Arteta is in this shape, if the opposition finds a way to sort of nullify that third central defender in the build-up, which was Zubimendi against Atletico Madrid and has been throughout the season, there is other unique ways that Arsenal are actually bringing their team into it. So I want to show you just what happens. So say the team has, for some reason, figured out what Arsenal are trying to do on the ball with Zubimendi in midfield. What do Arsenal do in response to that? Well, if we just set it back up in the 4-3-3 and say the centre-half has got the ball, I want to show you that this is what Arsenal do as sort of a plan C, D, so on. So when they've got the ball, lewis-skelly in the game against Atletico Madrid, but has often been Ricardo Calafiori, are making these really unique sort of runs inside the pitch. And what this means is when Arsenal are building up, they like to shimmy the back line, Timber drops, and then that obviously allows this player to step out more towards Timber. Maybe one of these centre forwards comes here, maybe he's blocking there. And then you're asking the question of this right winger, are we going to close Gabriel down, or are we going to track Calafiori, lewis-skelly's runs into the midfield? Now, people have mentioned inverted fullbacks a lot when we're talking about Manchester City teams, when we're talking about Arsenal, when we're talking about PSG maybe. Lewis-Skelly and Calafiori are not playing inverted fullbacks. They are playing free roles as fullbacks. They are not playing next to the pivot midfielder in midfield here. They are literally playing here. If you look at Lewis-Skelly's assist for the Gabriel Martinelli goal, he's not popping up in the left half space. He's popping up in midfield. And that is because Lewis-Skelly was a youth player in midfield, but he also has the profile to do that. Now, another thing that happens is not only are we asking the question of the right winger, are we following Lewis-Skelly? Are we staying with Gabriel? If the build-up's like this and Zubimendi drops in, so now we've got Timber, Saliba, Gabriel creating that three. We've got Zubimendi in here, but then Rice can also drop in and we can create that 3-2, which is a little bit more safe, a little bit more risk-averse. But what it also asks the question of is if this midfield four can back up. If you're looking to go man-to-man, you can already see sort of the gaps. If we're not squeezing tight enough, we want to put back pressure on both these central midfielders and all these build-up players. Already you can see that if this player is running off the shoulder into these pockets of space here, that is where the game can be won. We mentioned that we was watching the game before we come in to shoot, but when they played Liverpool at Anfield, the perfect role for Calafiori was to take advantage of Salah staying high out of possession. And Calafiori was running into midfield here and picking up the ball in these spaces. He didn't get it as frequently as I would have liked for him to receive the ball in them spaces because he was taking advantage of that position from their right winger. Are they going to go towards Gabriel? Are they going to stand off? Are they going to track him in? And this is a completely different dynamism than what we've seen Arsenal play recently. You know, we've got a really competent right central midfielder, whether it's Martin Ødegaard or Eberechi Eze, who are playing these, can drop deeper, but when we've got this base of midfield too, if the fullback is wide, that midfielder can then just go and play as a 10 right behind the striker, which is where Eze has played the majority of his best football, as a creative number 10 with all angles accessible to him. Not just pigeonholing himself to the right, but asking the question of standing in the middle. And for me, that is where Arsenal have become a complete side on the ball. I am going to touch about off the ball in a minute, but they have become one of the best sides on the ball in terms of can an opposition keep up with what they're doing? And they are doing that in multiple ways, whether or not it's Zubimendi between the centre-halves, whether it's Zubimendi dropping deeper with Rice and then the full-back, occupying this left space. But I think the number one thing that I noticed against Atletico Madrid was in this structure, every single player for Arsenal on the ball is a danger to the opposition. If they're on the ball, there is so much panic, whether it's Saliba with his long range of passing, whether it's Gabriel who can play them left-footed slips down the line, whether it's Ricardo Calafiori or Lewis-Skelly who are bulldozers but also technical players who can receive it there. The off-ball running from Martinelli and Saka, they're making these runs. Gyokeres is going 2v1 against most centre defensive partnerships. Zubimendi's that sort of one-touch specialist. Declan Rice, great carrier in terms of blowing through midfield and carrying the ball and taking it in these deep pockets and charging. And now we've obviously got Eberechi Eze, who is a little bit more of a technician who can pull something out of the hat, who are kind of has the best of all things. The passing, the dribbling, the carrying, the shooting, the crossing. He kind of got everything in that right centre midfield position. So I think definitely on the ball this year, Arsenal have been fantastic. And I did say this yesterday. I am going to throw up on the screen before I just go on to finish this segment. I am going to throw up on the screen the exact sort of positioning that I've used as an example of this. The game that we watched against Atletico Madrid, screenshot on your screen right now, which is almost that 3-4-3 that they played against Atletico Madrid with the two pivot players in Rice and Eze deeper, Zubimendi between the centre halves, the two full-backs really, really wide, and the wingers playing 1v1. And when you look at this screenshot, it's a very, very sort of encouraging one for Arsenal in terms of where the players are. And I think Viktor Gyokeres has struggled in patches in his Arsenal career so far, but I think his ability to be that draw, to play that 2v1, I think Kai Havertz, for all of his qualities, and I do believe he's a really, really quality footballer, he's a touch deeper than most centre-halves. He likes to ghost into the penalty area. He starts a little bit deeper. Viktor Gyokeres, his main attributes, as we've discussed on this channel, is these breaks in behind and these swivels in behind. That's where you're going to see the best of him. Often picks it up on this left-hand side. His carries towards goals. We mentioned last season for Sporting, he had the most goal plus assist ending carries in all of Europe for a single player. So if you're going to let that player play 1v1, that means he has then got the capacity to spin in behind, to carry, to run with the ball, to create chances, to create his own shots against a defence that's a little bit higher up. So teams like Atletico Madrid will naturally be more drawn to playing 2v1 against Viktor Gyokeres, and that creates space for Saka and Gabriel Martinelli to play 1v1. And I thought Saka in the game against Atletico Madrid, Martinelli as well, who got his goal, very, very good 1v1 players. I think in that screenshot I just throw up with a three at the back, their body positionings on that screenshot, they are both got their bodies facing forward diagonally. So say they get the ball here, or say Martin Zubimendi's got the ball between the centre halves. I actually think it's Eze in the screenshot he's shown. Both Martinelli and Bukayo Saka's body positioning are facing the goal diagonally. They're already making their moves. Martinelli's a little bit more, because he's on the opposite side of the ball, he's a little bit more facing this way, but Saka's already making that run. And he can only afford to make that run because the gravity and the players are marking and worried about Gyokeres. And he might look scruffy at sometimes, Gyokeres, but he can hold two defenders. And if he's not getting the goals himself, he is opening up space for other players. And it's probably the most freedom I've seen allowed to Bukayo Saka in a long time in an Arsenal shirt since he's been getting 2v1, 3v1. So that is what I've made of Arsenal on the ball, especially against Atletico Madrid. I am going to move on now into their out-of-possession stuff and how they have managed to not concede a single goal in the Champions League in the group stage at home under Arteta. But on the ball, absolutely brilliant. If you're enjoying the video and want more tactical analysis and podcasts, please press the subscribe button below and hit the bell to enable post notifications. Okay, so now moving on into Mikel Arteta's Arsenal off the ball this season. Now, a lot has been made about Arsenal in terms of their somewhat boringness, potentially in terms of their open play expected goals. We heard about it all last season. I think this season is a little bit more different, and I'm going to explain to you why. But I'm just going to throw up on your screen how impressive Arsenal have been so far off the ball this season. And it's probably even better than you're expecting. So on your screen right now, I'm going to explain this very detailed because there's a lot going on here. So this is every season, every team in the Premier League per game since 22-23. And the per game metric is expected goals against per game, okay? So 0.6 goals against expected for Arsenal. Now, I know what you're saying. There's only been 8 games played this season because Newcastle are right behind them. The 2 seasons that follow Newcastle's total are Arsenal in 23-24, then we've got City in 22-23, and then Arsenal again in 24-25. So Arsenal are actually getting better and better every year off the ball. And an expected goals against number of 0.6 per game in the Premier League is absolutely obscene. I cannot tell you how mental that is. It's almost half a goal expected against per game. That is ridiculous. And I really want to explain to you how this is possible. But I also want to show you on your screen, I've got every single shot that Arsenal have conceded in the Premier League so far this season. They've only conceded 3 goals, of course, but 4.8 expected goals has been conceded. They've conceded 65 shots. Their expected goals against per shot is 0.07. The average is 0.11 in the Premier League. So they are well below the average. And on the graphic on your screen, the teams that they've played in 8 games, only 3 shots in every game out of their 65 shots conceded are in the 6-yard box. If you think about how many tap-ins, cutbacks, set pieces, slip balls into the box, everything that other teams concede in the league, they have only conceded 3 shots in the 6-yard box this season. None of them have been goals, by the way. And that is just showing you how good this team is at defending. But structurally, I want to show you why they are so good. Now, because I've been wanting to talk about Arsenal for quite a while, I actually watched the All or Nothing documentary, and there was one moment in the All or Nothing documentary where Mikel Arteta says this one thing, and I think it is brilliant, and it kind of does allude everything about their shape. And I'm going to go on into talk about later a little bit more data on why they are so good defensively and why they're actually defending more than ever this season. They are defending more than ever this season. So Arsenal like to set up in a 4-4-2. Very compact, we know this, right? One of the things that Mikel Arteta wants to get rid of opposition teams is this player here. He has a moment in the documentary where he talks about accessing the inside channel, right? So what he's saying is that if this player is jumping out here and for some reason that ball is worked to that player, he said if this player who's beating sort of out the outside pass of the 4-4-2 block, if that player can access a central midfielder, he said $5,000 fine to his players. He said that is worth a $5,000 fine. So why is that pass so important? Why is it so important to deny? Well, if you think about it, where do you score the majority of your goals from in football? You score them here, around the zone. This is zone 14, which is known for being the most popular zone for shots, goals, creation, everything in football, on the top of the D. Now, if you can imagine a hub of 4 players, compact like this, around the edge of the D, and you are denying absolutely everything inside your block and you're restricting that pass, so an Arsenal player is always ball side, then you're forcing the opposition to go down the line here. And what are you going to do from there against Arsenal? You're going to cross it in. Okay, well, this team is a record-breaking set-piece team with absolute monsters in the box, so that's not going to work. Timber, Saliba, Gabriel, Calafiori, Declan Rice, it's not going to work. Raya, best cross-claimer in football. It's not going to work. So already, the solutions are very minimal. If we take it back to maybe, you want to try and beat Arsenal in the press, so you want to sort of have the ball, play around the back and then beat them, go and watch Gabriel Martinelli's offside goal against Atletico Madrid. They tried that. As Martín Zubimendi applied back pressure, they turned the ball over in the final third and they scored, but it was offside. But it's impossible to get out against them. You want to go long, same problem with the header, same problem with the duels, the second balls. Arsenal have won the second most second balls percentage-wise in the Premier League this season, behind only United. But I really want to just drill that home at how good these are at defending. If you want to try and lob it into the channel, maybe you can get past Gabriel, but you're not getting past Saliba. Raya's a terrific sweeper. There is a lot of problems to face here. And I think Liverpool was sort of not lucky, but they have got an amazing quality of player in Dominic Szoboszlai, who scored that free kick. But it does seem like at the moment that it is them moments that are the only moments you can get against Arsenal that can genuinely hurt them in terms of an opposition team coming against them. So, yeah, I want to just go on into sort of the data about Arsenal sitting deeper this season. And I want to explain to you sort of what's going on with their change now that Viktor Gyokeres, Eberechi have all signed. So I've got Arteta's Premier League numbers since the 22-23 season at Arsenal. So their expected goals per game in general is their 3rd highest figure out of their last 4 seasons. So on paper, you're looking at that, you're going, right, they're not really creating much, which is fine. Keep in mind that the margin between their expected goals against and expected goals created has gotten bigger. They might not be creating as much, but they are limiting the opposition team to virtually nothing now. It's 0.3 better than last season, expected goals against. Now, if we take that and we look at expected goals per game from open play, that is where the numbers look a bit more worrying. 0.94 expected goals from open play this season, after, again, just 8 games. But it's a very, very drastic figure from there. 22, 23, 23, 24, 24, 25 numbers. And it is obviously the lowest. And you can sort of see the gradual decline from that 23-24 season. Now, I don't like using expected goals from open play for this Arsenal team. And the reason why I don't like doing that is because of how inevitable their set pieces are. A lot of people mentioned last season that Arsenal's set pieces could dry up. And the question I really like to ask people when they say this is how do you think that's going to dry up? Because last season when it did, it was set pieces. And in my opinion, they are now finding ways to get in behind and through the better oppositions. Don't get me wrong, teams have scored 4 goals against Atletico Madrid before, but to do it in the way that they did with multiple solutions, free-flowing football, playing on the front foot, they should have been well in front early on in the match. I just look at that and I go, well, the set pieces, you can't just discard them, because if Declan Rice stays fit, if Gabriel Magalhaes stays fit, and Bukayo Saka stays fit, which you're not asking much there, now that they've got the squad depth to do so, why is that set piece all of a sudden going to dry out? I don't think it is, but I do think it is something to keep in mind that if they do lose them players to injury, then yes, they might have to step it up in other areas. But I don't doubt that the set pieces are there to score an early goal and to almost break the game wide open. It seems like that for Arsenal at the moment. It seems like they're looking for the marginal games always throughout the game, but I think once they get the corner goal, once they get a goal from a free kick or a goal from a long throw-in or something like that, the opposition has to come out and they want to take advantage of that space more often. I think that's sort of what the game plan is at the moment, and it's working. But I'm going to stop speaking about sort of their sustainability, about their goals and stuff like that, because, to be honest, it looks like it's not really going to slow down, the set pieces. They've been doing it for well long enough. So I now want to throw up on your screen what Arsenal have been doing this season, which has changed, and why I said they're defending more than ever this season. So on your screen, I've got the same exact metric, which is Arsenal in the Premier League since 22-23. I've got their pressed sequences per game, which has only, since that 22-23 season, gone down per game under Arteta, and it's now at 11.3. Now, if we're speaking about Arsenal pressing more sort of frequently, Arsenal are now more competent and more reliable in the deep block, and they want to play not in a mid block, they want to play in a low block, because they know that it's so hard to work the ball in between these players and to find the gaps to open up Arsenal consistently throughout the matches. I think Arsenal pressing, a brilliant team, but that does leave man-to-man 1v1s all over the park. This defensive block, it leaves massive profiles in the box to win, the headers, the tackling, the sort of the second balls, the height in there, the physicality, everything. I think in these close proximities, it's a harder job to break that down than it is to break down Arsenal through a press. I think you get more joy if you try and play through Arsenal's press. So already, I think that's why Arteta has chosen to sit and press a little bit less this season. It also could be the case of Arsenal are having more of the ball in longer stretches throughout the game because they are now more competent in finding solutions on the ball. But this is where it gets a bit more interesting. Their direct attacks is now at an all-time high under Mikel Arteta per game. And if I show you another 2 graphics on your screen, we've got their counter-attack total duration, and following on from that, their progressive play total duration. Now, I'm going to simplify these terms. So, progressive play total duration is attacking progressive moments of play that move the ball behind the opposition's structure, measured by moving the ball behind the opposition's centre piece, typically shorter phases that record the moment of build-up around a progressive action, then settles back into build-up. What the hell does that mean, basically? I know what you're saying. So, if you can imagine that this team has got the ball and they're trying to break down the 4-4-2, what this progressive play total duration means is that if the ball is won here, keep in mind that they are top for both these metrics in the Premier League. If the ball is won here, this is a progressive play total duration. So Arsenal are playing more of them balls through to their runners in behind defensive lines than any other team in the Premier League. Don't get me wrong, you can do this sat in. But Viktor Gyokeres, as we mentioned when he first joined, is a player who likes to spin into the channels. He was very left-sided against Atletico Madrid. He wanted the ball in this channel. The goal he scored against Leeds United, very, very good example of him taking the ball in that left channel, footwork and scoring. I did say that Mikel Arteta wasn't going to adapt his play style around Gyokeres, but I do think sort of this more direct approach with less pressing, more deep-sitting blocks and going a bit longer in the counter-attack and the progressive actions in behind defensive lines suits him better, and it gets players like Martinelli, Saka, Eze more space to work. Rice as well. More space to work in and around the opposition's penalty box with less bodies in there. So there is definitely a sense of Arsenal have tweaked a little bit more, and I think it's more towards their personnel. I think they have realised that they're adding another string to their bow, which is now, if Arsenal are struggling to create chances in open play, I've said this for a long time now, the game of football is battling over who can get more space on the pitch. And if you defend lower for more often in a game, whilst having the ball in good patches, the space is there for the team that aren't having the ball. It's in behind your defensive line. And that is where a lot of Arsenal's summer signings work their best football, in bigger spaces, especially Viktor Gyokeres. So I think Arsenal have got all the facets to be one of the most complete teams in the world at the moment. I would probably say they are. And not just have they got the ability on the ball, off the ball, the set pieces is a tool you cannot forget. But on top of that now, they've got the depth. And I think when people are criticising what they can do in the final third, the biggest thing I could say about the critique in the final third and what they're doing and their risk-averse nature is all down to the personnel and all down to the attacking quality they've bought and got in by the recruitment. The only place I could think that would let Arsenal down from that sort of point of view would probably be the left winger, someone like a Semenyo, someone like a Leao, someone like that. That's the only player I think they're missing if Eze is going to play in this right centre midfield or left centre midfield spot. But at the moment, Arsenal are going about their business absolutely incredibly, and they look like one of the most complete teams in the world, if not the most complete team in the world. So, yeah, let us know what you've made of Mikel Arteta's start with Arsenal this season. And if you did enjoy, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. And we'll be back next week for some more analysis. Thank you.